Am I going to be the only person to say that I actually quite liked this movie? This is my review of Home Sweet Home Alone that just premiered today on Disney+, and yes, it's a remake or a reboot or a sequel to the original Home Alone movies.
They don't even know I'm here. They don't even know I'm here.
I think people are pretty much aware of the Home Alone movies or what a Home Alone movie entails. And so a Home Alone movie is where a kid is left home alone and then has to defend their house against robbers. And so that's pretty much what this movie is. Home Sweet Home Alone, the 6th installment in the Home Alone franchise. And yes, there are 6 movies. I counted them myself.
6. Counted them myself.
And this movie is pretty much about a kid called Max who is left home alone whilst the rest of his family are on vacation in Tokyo. And that's what this movie is on like the most basic level. And it does follow like the same formula as the other Home Alone movies. But this one kind of has like a little bit of a remix. Instead of like the kid who is left home alone being like the main protagonist, the perspective we follow in this story is actually more of a perspective from the robbers like point of view, and I actually quite enjoyed that. Yes, other people may find that a little bit like that's not the essence of the Home Alone movies. The essence is pretty much a kid's left home alone and it's like the parents trying to get home to that kid before like the kid's in danger. Well, the whole movie the kid is in danger from these robbers, but I actually liked the perspective where it kind of like followed the robbers who are trying to like rob this kid, trying to rob this house, and I just liked how they felt more sympathetic in this movie. Yes, in the other movies we wanted that kid to like really hurt these robbers, but in this I felt kind of like sad. Yes, we know from the other Home Alone movies that the traps that the kids set are kind of painful, or actually really painful, and we wouldn't want them happening to us, but we kind of like really enjoy it somehow when it does happen to them. But in this movie some of the traps set up are actually really painful, and with the way this movie works you kind of feel sympathetic towards the robbers, and so I felt like I was receiving the same pain these robbers was receiving, and I really didn't want these traps to happen to us. And some of them, I'm going to give a spoiler for one of them, it's to do with Lego, and I would not want that happening to me, especially with like the trap before it and then feeling that again. And because this movie takes a new perspective and focuses a bit more on the robbers Pam and Jeff, who are played by Ellie, Kemper and Delaney, they were really funny characters, and it also made their characters more compelling than the kid, Max, who's played by Archie Yates. And if you're familiar with his work as kind of like the side character in Jojo Rabbit, he was really funny in this, but in this movie I found him a little bit annoying, and I don't know why, because in the other movies I felt like the main kid kind of like was very like charismatic, and yes he does kind of had that charm in this movie, but then I also just found like I was really rooting for the robbers and I felt really sorry for them, and it was just a whole big, this movie was based on like a whole big misunderstanding, and I just kind of like much preferred watching the robbers than I did the kid, and he didn't have enough time in this movie to shine, and that is a criticism because all the other movies the kid is kind of like the main focus, setting up the traps for this, and I kind of felt like I was getting lost a bit in here. I was like, oh wait, when did he set up that trap? Did they show that trap? Why is that happening there? I don't know why, but I did kind of find myself a little bit lost when trying to follow the boy and not follow the robbers. And because this movie takes more of a perspective on the robbers and kind of like the robbers' background and their backstory, we don't really see that much of the mum trying to get home to her son. And the mum in this is played by Ashlyn B, and she's a comedian, and I quite like her in like when she's on chat shows or in game shows, and I really liked her playing the wife to Paul Rudd in Living With Yourself. But you don't really see her that much in this movie, or at least not as much as I expected to see her or wanted to see her in this movie, or kind of what the trailers like led to believe that we'd see her in this movie. And like with my knowledge of the other movies, we do see like the mum quite a bit like trying to get home to the son, but we don't really see it that much in this movie, and like any inclusion, any little scene of it kind of felt like misplaced, or it just came like just popped out of nowhere and like really wasn't convenient in the storyline at that moment. And I felt like they brought on the right cast, the right set of people to deliver a movie such as this. And from the trailer we do see a little snippet of Buzz from the original Home Alone movies, and yes he does have a really nice cameo in this. He actually has kind of like a longer cameo in this than I first anticipated, and I did kind of enjoy it. I did really like seeing him in this, and it wasn't just that reference where they actually had an actor from the original Home Alone movies. They also have kind of like other references, kind of like modern modernized scenes, modernized like little snippets, little like Easter eggs from the original movies, and I did really like them. And as a reboot or a remake or a sequel, because it does kind of follow on, because you do have a grown-up version of Buzz from the original movies, this movie I felt like it was pretty self-aware, and it made a lot of jokes that I find a lot of reboots tend to do, where they will have one character say a line which kind of reference the original movies. And in this movie they have a character say a line where it was something like, oh, why'd they reboot this movie? People know that reboots never live up to the originals and you can't beat the classics. And yes, this movie is pretty self-aware because it doesn't beat the classics, it doesn't beat the originals, but I actually really like this movie. I liked the new perspective we took. I liked how it kind of made the robbers feel sympathetic, and you kind of felt like, oh, this whole movie is based on a misunderstanding, and the resolution to this movie is not like the other movies. And I'm not going to say any more than that in case it does come out as a spoiler. And I also want to say that this movie is very modern, and it doesn't really steer away from its modernity, if that's even a word. They have a thing in this which is kind of like an Alexa, but it's something else. And there are a lot of like jokes surrounding technology, whereas the other movies, or the other 5 Home Alone movies, they seem kind of like part of the same era, even though I think they're made from like the 90s to like 2012, I think the last one is. And yes, that is about a 20-year difference between the first one and the 5th one, but I do really feel like they are kind of in like the same era, where like the technology isn't like the foreground in the movies, and it does kind of feel like very old school. Like all the traps in the other ones, they kind of feel like really old school, but in this it does feel really modern, and just kind of like jokes that are weaved into the storyline really does follow like the technological advancement, modern route. I feel like I'm kind of going on like a tangent here, but I'm not saying it as a bad thing, but it does really kind of feel like dated. This movie does feel dated in 2021, whereas all the other movies do kind of seem like they're part of the same era, though I know they're not. I know I'm not trying to compare them all as like one thing, but I do kind of feel like all those other movies, the other 5, do feel, just to me, they do kind of feel like similar. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie and I would watch it again. I don't love it as much as like the other Home Alone movies or like the original Home Alone movies, but I felt like this was a fun reboot, it was a fun remake, and if it's a sequel, it's fun. It's fine. They had a perfect cast to deliver the type of humour and the jokes that they wanted in this movie. I like the new perspective on the robbers rather than the kid who is home alone, and I just felt like it was a fun movie. Perfectly fine. I don't hate it. I didn't think I was going to hate it. I thought it was going to be just another fine sequel, because I liked all the other like reboots or remakes from the first 2, and so yeah, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I like this movie. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Later today or tomorrow I will have a ranking of all 6 Home Alone movies, so you're going to want to stick around for that, for maybe more controversial opinions on the Home Alone franchise. But thanks for watching this video. Bye!